middle school, usually I take it. Yeah, it's okay. I'll just here. Yeah, we can take time. I can do audio. Audio check. Check, check. Audio check. All right, it works.
Oh, this is stream service. Hello, good afternoon. Transmedia.
Good afternoon. I hope, or we hope, that you had a good lunch. We are about to start our afternoon session. So right now we are going to start with Dr. Arthur Soto Vasquez, who is an assistant professor of communication at Texas A&M International University, or TAMU. He studies the relationship between digital media, popular culture, and identity making. His first book is titled Mobilizing the Latinx Vote, Media, Identity, and Politics, published by Routledge in 2020. His current projects, his current projects cover U.S. Latinx political identity, misinformation, influencers, and consumer culture. He has presented his research at the University of Oxford, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that university from Italy.
It's easier to write than say.
And the International Communication Association. He received his PhD from the American University and is from El Paso, Texas. So he's a fellow border town. He's a Rotarian and board member of the Laredo Film Society. So please give a warm welcome to Dr. Arthur Soto.
All right, thank you for the kind introduction. So, yes, that actually covers my bio pretty quick, but good to see you all here. Hope you're staying warm. And what we'll do is, I was kind of asked to present, and excuse me, but I'm a nerdy professor, okay? And so what I'm going to kind of do in this lecture, it's going to be like a college lecture, okay, is I'm going to kind of try to give you a very high-level view of some of the things I think that are happening in terms of media and communication and politics. For those of you who are, you're young, you're about to go into college and your careers, you have a sense of kind of where things are moving, where things are going. So we did cover my bio a little bit, but if we can get the next slide. So I'm going to talk about who I am, my journey to being where I am now. I'll talk about 10 trends, and then I'll try to show how you can learn some of these things and get better at it here locally in the community as well, in the region. Next slide, please. So my name is Arthur Soto Vasquez. I'm a PhD, and I'm assistant professor at TAMU. Next slide, please. Okay. Like my introduction said, I'm from El Paso, Texas, which is sometimes confused with, as I've heard, EP. People will say, oh, I'm from EP, and then they're like, Eagle Pass? No, I'm from El Paso, but I've been to Eagle Pass a couple times. And as a fellow border person, I fell in love with Laredo as soon as I moved here, and I'm really happy to be here. But something I would offer to you all to think about as we go through this presentation is sometimes we think of the border as this place that we need to leave, right? As we need to get out of to be successful. And while I certainly have been to other places and studied at other places, and I encourage you, and I know you will do those things, I want you to also think about the border and where you live as a place of immense talent, resources, stories, and the future. And you all have those resources at your fingertips. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Okay, next slide. Next slide again, maybe. Oh, that's right, there's pictures here. Okay, look at it again. Yeah, so like I said, my journey has kind of taken me all over the place. This is me in DC, getting my PhD a couple years ago. Next slide. I've been able to study at Oxford, like I said. This is really, I think, when I first started to see these global trends in media production happen. So I'm just kind of telling you these things so that you know where kind of some of my experience comes from. Next slide. And me in Italy as well. Okay, next. Kind of went through my bio a little bit. That's my educational background. I didn't start off as a communications student. I actually started off studying political science. I wanted to become a lawyer growing up, but just went in a different direction. It's okay, it's normal. But I still think a lot about politics and its relationship to how we consume media, how we produce it. And I think it does play a large role. I also think a lot about business too, and the industry movements, and so we'll see a little bit of that in a minute. Next, please. Okay, a little bit of background of what I've done in between schooling. I think that's important. Immediately after college, when I didn't have a job and didn't know what I was doing, I went to work on a political campaign in El Paso. And I learned a lot there. I learned especially not to knock on people's doors because a dog might bark at you. And that's right, got a fear of dogs. I worked in the legislative session in Austin, so I learned a little bit more about politics and public policy there. I worked at UT Athletics, tutoring football players. So there I had two things happen to me. One is I was at the top of my pop culture knowledge because of the vines that my UT Athletics would show me. And two, that's where I kind of learned how to become a better teacher and instructor. And I've also taught at American University in El Paso Community College. Okay, next. So what do I do? As a professor, sometimes I think we get a little bit misinterpreted about what we actually do as our jobs. So in addition to teaching, which I do also, I teach three classes right now. I also study and I produce research. And so what that means is I look at kind of, again, trends that are happening in the world. I ask questions about them. We look at what has been published before. We go out and collect data, and then whether that's through talking to people, looking at text like films or media or news items, and we try to make sense of what these things mean. And we publish our findings and for the world to see and review, and this is a big part of our job. It's roughly 50-50 or so. As I said earlier, I published a book, I published a couple of things, and they're mostly in the areas of political communication and digital media and culture. Some of the classes I teach are up there as well. Like I said, I also volunteer for the Laredo Film Society. So, okay, let's go next. This is pictures of me doing work. Next. And I get to write fun stuff actually sometimes, like how fans of the MCU use memes to communicate their understanding of the films. And so in this case, the meme of Thanos with the head of Stalin over it, and saying you don't have to feed half the population. So, we get to put those into kind of social and political context. That's what I get to do, and it's pretty fun. There's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's fun. All right, next. So let's talk about those 10 trends. This will be more interactive, I promise. I just wanted to kind of introduce myself a bit. So let's get started. Next slide, please. All right, what's going on in the news right now? Yeah, war. All right. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm curious though. Think about for 30 seconds or so. And what I want you to think of is, where did you see the news of Russia invading Ukraine first? Try to remember that, and then I'm going to ask for people to volunteer. So we'll start over here. Yeah, go ahead.
First I see it on TikTok.
TikTok. All right. Next.
Twitter.
Twitter. Okay. Good.
I saw it on TV when I was at high school.
All right. TV and Authenticate. So I'm going to keep one finger. Okay, good. TikTok? TikTok? YouTube recommends, okay. Discord, okay. Instagram? Okay, friends told me about it, cool, okay. Instagram? And then where did you say?
These kids told me about
Oh,
it.
wow.
Yeah, I went on.
Out of the loop, okay, really out of the loop. All right, so, anybody who was paying attention, what did we notice about where everybody saw the news first? Social media, except for two people. One, on TV, kind of inadvertently, which is okay, it's fine. And then somebody told you, which is another way in which people learn the news. Same thing, I heard of it first on Instagram, yeah. I saw a story post, that was somebody reposting something, and that's how I first learned about it. Then I went to traditional media to learn more, but that's where I first learned about it. Next slide. Next slide, please, sorry. Yeah, this really, I think, this instance right here shows that one of the scenarios that is happening right now is the decline of what we call traditional media. Right? One person saw it on television. That used to be where most people got their news even just 20 years ago. But more likely that's still where your parents get their news, probably. And your grandparents probably got it from print, newspapers. Let's get the slides going, please. There we go. So as we see, the media landscape is changing. More people are getting the news from online places. And this kind of term digital platforms is pretty broad. It can include everything we just talked about. But it could also include just going out to the web. People still do a lot of television. We don't want to say that that's not important, especially older folks. But it is much more heavily leaning towards online. Next slide. And within that kind of large category of digital, we see news websites, search, social, podcasts included in there as well. And it's roughly split evenly between web and mobile. So this is a big kind of shift in how people are getting information. So if you're working in this industry, really have to think about how we get our information to the public. Well, it's going to be on social. For now. Next slide. This has kind of impacted how journalism, which is essentially the production of news, that industry has changed quite a bit. Jobs have been cut in that a lot in the last 10 years. I know you just talked with Professor Brown, right, from TAMU as well. He used to work as a journalist, but kind of partly due to some of the shifts in the industry, that's how he ended up with us at TAMU. However, though, those digital-oriented jobs, getting the news out on public, social media, has gone up a lot as well. If you're still looking to have a journalism job, though, your work has increased quite a bit. You're doing maybe like 3 jobs. You're shooting the pictures, you're editing the story, and you're posting it. You're talking about it. This is partly because the revenues from traditional advertising have left and moved to online forms. And this presents a lot of challenges. So, does anybody ever remember something called classifieds? Heard of those things? Okay. Yeah, we're in a different age group. So, what's a classified? Could you help me out?
You're looking for someone to find a specific, to fulfill a specific service?
Yeah. So, I'll give you a good example. My grandpa used to have a house that he would rent out in El Paso. Whenever he needed somebody to live in it, he put an ad in the classifieds seeking a new, somebody to rent it, right? Where would you post that now?
Facebook.
Right, Facebook, where else? Craigslist. Yeah, and guess what? It's free to post on those websites for the most part. Back in the newspapers, you had to pay sometimes $100, $250 just to put that ad in. That was a significant form of revenue for newspapers. Completely gone, pretty much, except for some. Go ahead, next slide. The other kind of issue that we're facing with news media is that people, especially divided by parties, trust the media a lot less now. And so we've seen this kind of divergence happen a lot from a partisan perspective with Republicans who trust the traditional news media just a lot less. And you can see 11% is pretty low. And this has happened over the last 4 years. So people get in the news differently and they're trusting the media quite a bit. Next slide. Okay, trend number 2. This one might seem a little weird to talk about in terms of media and production, but it does actually play quite a big role. As we saw with the news with Ukraine, Instability, and particularly material instability, can play a big part in production. So, next slide. Anybody have a PS5 in this room? Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about how hard it was to get?
It was actually really easy.
Oh yeah? Tell me about that.
It's because there's this website called Sony Direct, which is from
Okay.
Sony. So I just signed up, waited 2 weeks, and got it.
Okay. And now, you make it sound easy, but anyone else in here wants a PS5? Yeah. Why haven't you gotten that yet?
There's nowhere,
Yeah. Okay. Same. Yeah. I won't want to. And I'm a convenience person. I want to be able to walk into GameStop, have it there, grab it, and go home. Right? That's just not realistic. Or you have to go through all these hoops. What's your name?
Sebastian.
Sebastian did, right? Sign up on a website, follow this guy up on Twitter to get the information of when PS5s are coming out. But
Oh, sorry.
No,
I
you're fine.
just wanted to say that I didn't go on Twitter. I just signed up and I got it.
nice. Okay, I'm going to have to follow that rule then. Now, did you have a PS4 before?
Yeah.
How did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, one of the reasons why, there's many reasons, but one of the reasons why PS5s are so hard to get now is because the materials that are used to make them are in short supply. The microchips. There's been supply chain issues because of COVID, right? Factories shut down, shipping has caused issues. And so, it might seem a little strange to think, okay, like, issues that are happening in China or across the world impact our consumption of things like video games, but they do. They do a lot. And specifically with something like Russia invading Ukraine, a lot of neon is produced in the Ukraine. And that's a vital component for tech. So we could see some issues there. Next slide. For example, this is a mine in Nevada where they're getting something called rare earth materials. And a lot of these materials are used to make an iPhone. Next slide. So these are some of those materials. These are like the bottom. How many of you are taking chemistry or taking chemistry? Okay, yeah. I was not very good at chemistry. That's why I studied communication. And some of the things are like at the bottom. These are very rare materials, hard to find, and they're expensive to get. 90% of them are made in China, not in the US, or mined. Next slide. And it's assembled mostly in either East Asia or Southeast Asia. So anything that can disrupt that flow of goods is going to have an effect on media production as well. Something to be aware of. Okay, next. Something else that we're seeing, this is number 3, is that people are becoming a lot less trusting of social media and the effects it has on everyday life. We're seeing bipartisan support from Republicans and Democrats to regulate big tech much more and more. There are concerns that it limits the ability for people to create a new company and let it go and essentially grow because there's these dominant forces in the marketplace. Europe has become a lot more aggressive regulating tech also as well, and that's had some impacts pretty big on Facebook, for example. Next. So, has anyone seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix? All right, I would recommend that you all watch it. It's on Netflix. It's a really great documentary. And it talks a lot about some of the impacts that social media has on us every day. Who has an Instagram here? Okay, good. How do you feel when, this might not super apply to you, but how do you feel when you're at home Friday night, Saturday night, and I usually have my college students this, but maybe this is funny. And you see all your friends on Instagram hanging out together, or doing something and you're by yourself. How does it make you feel? Why does it make you feel sad?
Because I'm not with them.
Because you're not with them, right? You feel like, why wasn't I included? Sucks. Yeah, I'm so lame. I'm at home. Okay, other people's thoughts. How does it make you feel?
What's it called?
FOMO. FOMO. Yeah, I feel it too. If I see people traveling and I'm stuck at home working, it doesn't make me feel good. Next slide. We're also finding that, especially among women, that the constant visualizing of other people, especially women's bodies, it produces some really bad outcomes in terms of people's self-image and body image. And there's been some concern, there's been a lot of concern actually, that this is an outcome of social media. Following accounts that portray unrealistic body standards can harm, of course, all people, but women, and particularly young women, even more so. So there's a lot of concern about that. I didn't want to post an actual picture of this, but I thought this book was nice. Yeah, good.
Because sometimes some cases you can not even the actual thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. It looks realistic, right? It kind of does, but it isn't. There are some ways in which you can compose filters, body modification, that can make someone look unrealistically beautiful, I suppose. The other thing too is, interestingly enough, thanks for your comment. People are actually getting plastic surgery to look more like Instagram models now. I don't know if you've seen this or heard of it, but it's super interesting. Everybody wants to look like, what's her name? Kendall Jenner?
Kim Kardashian.
Yeah, Kim Kardashian too. Like literally people will go into plastic surgeons' offices and say, take a picture of Kim Kardashian and say, I want to look like this. Because of that influence of what they've seen on social media so much. Next slide, please. Okay. Number 4, we're going to we were high level here, and kind of bring it down into some things. I study social media a lot, and one thing we are seeing is that everyday brands are turning more towards trying to speak the language of the internet. And usually this is done through memes. Anybody want to give me a definition of what a meme is? How would you describe it? Like say if you were talking to your grandma, a Wendy, and you said, oh, that was a meme. And then grandma says, what's a meme?
It's like an inside joke. A really big joke.
Inside joke, what were we gonna say?
A really big joke made by several people.
Really big jokes made by several people. What else? How else would we
Maybe
describe it?
irony. Like-
Irony? Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Irony does play a big role in it. Yeah, but
It's like a joke, but like you actually get to see it. Like,
Okay.
A picture and like a caption, like here you know what looks like this.
yeah, good, good.
Also like relatable.
Relatable as well. So, but here's the issue of like, all good definitions, but that also applies to jokes, right? So that's one of the challenges. It's actually really hard to define things. We went through this with my college class the other day. I like to think about 2 ways in which we define things. There is a image macro, kind of a blank slate, that can be repeated endlessly. So this is like the base of the meme without the new text. But it also relies upon an intertextual reference to pop culture. So in this case, with the Jimmy John's picture, the intertextual reference is the quote here, you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about. And the macro is kind of the format of this meme, comparing one to the other, one being kind of basic, the other one being a little bit extra. So that's kind of how I like to think of memes. They're a little hard to define though. Next slide. So something that is happening more and more in the PR advertising industry is that young people, especially right out of college, are being hired to serve as kind of trend spotters. And what this work entails is basically being on the internet all the time and seeing what is being talked about, what's trending, so that companies, organizations, brands essentially can jump on these trends and make sure that they're reaching this younger audience. Was that it? It doesn't. Okay. TikTok in particular has opened up a lot of interesting avenues for this that are quite different. I personally refused to get a TikTok for many years until this spring semester when I had to for class. But I am addicted to it. Why is TikTok addicting, by the way, do you think?
Because short,
Yeah, okay, short attention span, what else?
fast content, and also the For You page, like, is really helpful to get a lot of different interests.
Yeah.
Optimized algorithm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it, I would say, is, y'all can go fast, so you might know a reference to this. It's a little bit like a video slot machine. And the founders of people who create online social media talk about it in these terms. They talk about it in that documentary that I showed you earlier. When you're playing a slot machine, y'all are too young for this, but you keep pressing it because you think you're about to win. And so you press it again. Oh, one more time. One more time. One more time. Your brain is waiting for that payout. Well, your brain operates similarly when you're on TikTok as well. One more video. Let me find the one that's going to be really funny. One more. One more. It's called an intermittent reward system, basically. like, I didn't get it this time. Maybe I'll get it the next one. That's what keeps you on that platform so long. Brands realize this and they're capitalizing on it. So things like the Target challenge, I don't know if anybody saw this on TikTok, but basically the idea was you and a partner have to go to Target and get things that you think they would buy. And it was people kind of just repeating it. Advertising, free advertising, essentially, for Target. So again,
It's giving us gifts.
yeah, yeah. Look it up later. It was just a trend, you know, it was just a fun trend on TikTok. And guess what? Free advertising for Target that we gave them. All those Encanto songs on TikTok, right? Drives people to watch it again on Disney Plus and subscribers. Okay, next. So the only drawback, I had to use this video because I love it. Because I feel this more and more every day, by the way, I just trying to introduce something. I feel it more and more every day. Brands can come across as how do you do fellow kids? And I think this is a place in which y'all as young people can really, you know, make sure that these trends are not cringy and actually relevant to young people. And it's something that you probably know better than most people. So like I always tell my students, you know more than you think you do. Okay, next. We're seeing also a general shift towards video production rather than text. People seem to not like to talk about, not like to read or write text. I wanted to show you some TikToks, but apparently the school Wi-Fi here doesn't let me. But I think we can do, we are able to use them on campus. But something called news aggregation is becoming more popular. And this is where people on TikTok or YouTube don't necessarily report the news, but what they do is they grab news that's happening elsewhere and turn it into their own video content. Anybody follow Philip DeFranco? You've probably seen his videos on your feed at some point. This guy is really good at this. He just, whatever is on the news, he'll make short little 30-second videos about it constantly. And he wants you to go to his page and subscribe. A lot of people say, a lot of my students say that is where they get their news. We're seeing a huge growth in TikTok, by the way, and Facebook is becoming a lot less popular. You ever heard of the metaverse, by the way? What do you think about it? What are your general thoughts?
It's scary.
Scary? Why is it scary?
What is the metaverse? I don't know what it is.
Someone want to describe what? I'm not honestly totally sure what it's
Like,
supposed to be.
like virtual reality? Virtual reality when you sleep and... Nah. What is that? You put some goggles and you're like a Matrix, something like that. Oh yeah, the gold thing.
Yes.
No, but it's different, but it's for Microsoft, I think.
Well, Facebook is trying to get into it.
Yeah. I don't
yes.
know what it is.
So it's a virtual reality. The idea is what Mark Zuckerberg talked about is having like business meetings in the metaverse. Interesting. The other thing is too, people are buying virtual property in the metaverse as well. So people are buying land. There's like, I've heard of Disney thinking about getting into metaverse as well. So you can like go to Disneyland in the metaverse. Don't laugh though. I think it could be something. We'll find out. That's like a question mark because I'm not sure. But I would keep an eye on this. NFTs, metaverse kind of stuff. It might be a fad, but who knows? So keep an eye. I don't know enough to make a decision. Okay. Let's do the next slide. Okay, so this is kind of a weird idea. We've been talking a lot about online media, this idea of like return of physical, but I think it's still really important. Let me ask you all something. How did you feel about online learning? Didn't like it? Who liked it? Raise your hand if you liked it. Okay, 3. Who did not like it? Okay, for those of you who liked it, give me some reasons why you liked it.
Why I like it?
Yeah, why you liked
Because
it.
I have a lot of free time.
More free time? Okay. Say that again.
I did things on my own time.
Did things on your own time. Yeah, that's a big plus. Okay. Now those of you who raise your hand why you didn't like it. Why didn't you like it?
It made me a lot lazy.
Say that again.
It made me a lot lazy.
Made you a lot lazy. Yeah, it was harder to get that motivation right if you weren't in class and didn't know what to do. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but
You could socialize with people.
yeah, I think that was for me the hardest part. I like the energy of being in a classroom and saying like, hey, what do you think about this? You know, and like it's really hard like I'd be on the computer and be like, because we have this really weird thing at TAMU where we have to go to class and teach on from our computer, even though there was no students there. So it's kind of weird. And I would just like ask a question and be like, silence, you know, it's awkward. Other reasons why you didn't like it? Anyone else want to go ahead. Yeah, and then you kind of get used to the procrastinating. So I think this kind of shows that even though there's all these online trends, people still want to go back out into the world and socialize again post-COVID. Even though we're not totally out of it, I think mentally we're kind of getting to that space. And so what I've seen and I continue to see is that an emphasis on events is happening more and more. So some media organizations actually make events part of their significant revenue. Some news organizations that used to get stuff from ads now do events to get money, basically. So thinking of the ways in which you can create events that get people there, and then critically that they put on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok is another way to think about some of the shifts that we're seeing. We've seen a huge increase in people traveling for fun over the last few months, and that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. Next slide. I've kind of seen this through a couple of, I probably use Instagram the most of my social media networks. And in terms of stuff I study, things like Disneyland, influencers, other types of influencer accounts, people are really ready to go back and travel and do things. So, this is a festival that's happening. That's basically all the music that I liked when I was your age, and it's sold out completely because everybody wants to go see My Chemical Romance and Kevin.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, sold out completely within like a day. So people are ready to get out there. But when they're out there, they want to mediate their experience. Speaking of ways in which you can bridge real life and online, I think is the future. Next. This one might be a little confusing, so let me try to explain it. But something we're seeing is, and I've observed a lot, and I write about this quite a bit, is as kind of traditional politics becomes maybe more annoying, voting doesn't seem like it has as much of an impact. People are trying to express their political beliefs by what they buy or don't buy. And so we see things like increased, turn towards like clean or natural products. People buying those, people trying to avoid certain things. Next slide. Anybody remember the Nike protests? No. And why were people protesting against Nike? Yeah.
What?
So, you want to give a little more background?
Yeah. I don't know what.
Yeah, formerly.
And was it during the Pledge of Allegiance where like he took a knee, he went down on his knee when he was supposed to be like standing up for everybody else, and everybody was like, that's disrespectful, and it's okay. And then I think Nike backed him. Nike was like agreeing with them, but everybody was like, no. And they started like burning everything.
Yeah.
Because he was disrespectful. I don't know.
So, thank you for that. That was a good recap. And yeah, you're right. Nike did kind of feature, they did feature Kaepernick in an ad. And they themselves were kind of participating in this consumptionist politics too, right? If you want to support Kaepernick, you want to support what he stands for, buy Nike, you buy Nike stuff. If you are against it, what do? Well, you burn your Nike stuff. Right, yeah. Starbucks has been involved in this, Levi's, I mean, most brands have faced some sort of kind of consumer backlash related to politics in some way, and I think it's certainly going to be something that keeps happening as we move forward. Next slide. Okay, this is something I particularly care a lot about, and I think because I identify as Latino, Hispanic, I'm seeing this a lot more where people are using things that they buy and wear to say who they are and try to express themselves, and I've certainly seen it more and more recently. Next slide. Okay, probably need to start wrapping up soon, but I do want to talk a little bit about streaming and how it's changing the film industry. Anybody here want to get into making films or short videos? Okay, yeah. So something that we're seeing is Netflix, Disney Plus, HBO Max, Those are probably the major competitors in the US. Tencent is a streamer in China. They are going after more independent productions, things like that y'all might be involved in the future. And they're reshaping how films are made and produced. They want more content to get more subscribers to be the ones that people will be watching. There's also a question about how like these big budget films that cost a lot of money, $250 million, $300 million plus advertising, will continue to do in movie theaters. People maybe aren't totally comfortable going back to the movies. Spider-Man did really well, top 3 or 4 all time, but other movies that were expected to do well didn't, like James Bond, for example. There was no way James Bond was ever going to make back the money that it had to make because of just delays. Okay, next slide. I think I'm related to streaming, and this is something that, remember, I read a lot of politics, I told you about that. If you want to look at and make kind of bets on who is going to be successful in the future politically, it's going to be people that can use social media, specifically streaming, really well, right? So folks like AOC on Twitch, there are politicians in Brazil who were formerly Twitch streamers playing video games, are now in their Congress. Just like Franklin Delano Roosevelt used the radio, John F. Kennedy used TV, Reagan used films and TV, the next generation of political leaders will be using Twitch, YouTube streaming, Instagram Live, stuff like that. So look for the ones who are doing it well to see who's going to be successful. Next. This also relates to podcasts. I've been doing a little bit of studying of podcasts too, and it was interesting hearing the way people talk about them. They often talk a lot about them like, oh, it was my company or friends during the pandemic. I loved having people in the background feel like I was having conversations. We're working on a study right now with some college from New Jersey on that. I'm kind of curious, this is more of a see what happens. How many of you listen to podcasts? Okay, did you start listening to podcasts during the pandemic? Anyone was listening before? Okay, interesting. All right. I'm kind of interested to see if that will maintain or if it's kind of a fad. So, kind of put a question on that. All right, last slide. Artificial intelligence. Pretty interesting stuff. Anybody watched the Book of Boba Fett on Disney Plus? Okay. So since you're the one who did, who's that? Which character? No, that's Luke Skywalker. Yes.
You don't know enough.
Now, the actor who portrays Luke Skywalker is Mark Hamill, who is in his 60s now. That is not Mark Hamill right now. Anyone know how that face was made? Yeah. Computer programs, AI, that take parts of his face, parts of other people's face, and put it together to create that production. The interesting thing about this version from, you watched right, this series, the Book of Boba Fett. How did Luke Skywalker sound in the episode he was in? How was it weird? Try to describe it.
It's the older movie, that's like his voice. So this is like, it's weird seeing it again because you know that that's not
Yeah.
his.
So here's what they did. They used a program called Respeecher. It's up there. They put all of the dialogue from the original movies into this program. They had Mark come back and record a couple more lines, and they used that to create the dialogue that exists in the film or in the show. So what you hear when you watch this is not Mark Hamill speaking. It's a computer program sounding like Mark Hamill speaking. So artificial intelligence is becoming much more prominent. I use a program called Jasper. Next slide. I was going to show it to you, but we just don't have the time. But I have a program called Jasper that can use AI to write stuff, basically. I use it to write press releases for the Radio Film Society, and it's amazing. You can put in, write a press release about this event, and it will write 50, 100 words for you, right in there. I think y'all, as young people going into this field, will have to learn how to be comfortable with AI and getting used to it, because it's going to become increasingly more important in media production. Okay, so let's take a step back. Those are my trends. I wanted to just give you a definition of what communication is. You can kind of see how of a wide spectrum it is and why it's, I think, a cool thing to study. Essentially, look at how people use messages to make meaning across a variety of contexts, forms, whether it's TV shows, film, news, and then we study it, whether it's through reading stuff, talking to people, doing statistical tests, which I don't do, to get kind of a sense of what is happening in the field. Next slide, please. So what I study, and probably my trends, are limited just to my small area of communication. If you were to talk to my colleagues, they might have 10 different things. There's human communications, that's verbal, nonverbal, there's organizational communication, mass media, TV, film, right? You can get a list of 10 from everyone else different. So what I thought I'd do, just to give you a little bit of sense of kind of what we do at TAMU, what we can offer, is show a quick little video that I made, big project, about what we do. So let's play that video.
Studio is a relatively new addition to the TAMU campus. It provides full studio, field production, and multi-camera TV production capability, including editing bays, control room, soundboard, switcher, and a sound room. The communication program offers students an opportunity to work collaboratively with the KLRN Public Television of South Texas. Student reporters produce monthly news packages in the broadcast journalism course. They have covered local issues concerning immigration policies, cultural transactions, and environmental problems on the U.S.-Mexico border. And these monthly news packages have been posted to the KLRN news websites.
The Communication Department at TAMU offers a variety of courses that focus on advertising, public relations, communication design, visual literacy, and publication. During these courses, we'll have conversations that discuss the construction and deconstruction of visuals as a means of communication. While enrolled in these courses, students may practice a variety of projects such as creating mixed media advertising campaigns, visual communication analyses, and participating in publications such as Destination, a communication department magazine that focuses on TAMU's international community and study abroad experiences.
The Shoot to Kill Film Festival is a biannual event that is held on the TAMU campus and is free and open to the public. The film festival showcases the work of students enrolled in video video production courses and video editing post-production courses. In fall 2020 and spring 2021, the Student Festival was held online via the YouTube platform.
The communication faculty at TAMU engages in innovative and exciting research. Recent areas of focus include U.S. Latinx political communication, global media and K-pop, local COVID-19 misinformation flows, borderlands journalism and cinema, and Latinas in the U.S. Border Patrol, just to name a few areas. Students learn hands-on from their faculty in quantitative and qualitative research methods coursework. Students have the opportunity to collaborate with faculty as both research participants and as research assistants, or even as co-authors. Cool, thank you for that. Can we, I think there's a few more slides and then we're gonna go to questions. Maybe the other window. So that video shows like some of the things that we do at TAMU. Hopefully it was interesting. I'm in that video, if you can't tell, because I'm in a good part of it. So excuse my pretty poor editing skills, but it was what I could do with the tools I had. Like I said, I'm also a board member of the Laredo Film Site. If you don't know what we do, we basically show local films, we show kind of art house cinema, we engage in kind of workshops where people learn about things like digital photography, VJing, which is like projection, mapping, and all kinds of visual stuff. We've done stuff like cartoons and drawing. We have a lot of other fun stuff. So let me just show a couple of things that we do. Next slide.
Cartoons, animation, what?
Say that again?
Animation?
Yeah, so there's actually, strange enough, there's an animator that works for the Walt Disney Company that lives here remotely, to supporter of ours, and he's given workshops in the past, and he will probably do another one eventually. Soon, and so here's a workshop we did on digital photography, kind of the basics of it, 101, if you will. And students had a really good time with this one. These are open to all ages, so you'll have people y'all's age, college students, and 60-year-olds at these workshops. It's a lot of fun. Is that a question?
Two questions.
Yeah.
Is there a website for this? And then two, you said that y'all have a location and like an in-house?
Yeah, we do. No, yes to both. So we have a website, laredofilm.com. And I would actually recommend our Instagram. It's probably where we post the most, so that's also Laredo Film. That's probably the best place to keep up to date with what we do. And we do have an office. It is in the Center for the Arts. That is San Agustin. I don't remember the number. Should have had that information. But it's on our website. We're not always there because we're all volunteers. Yeah.
But it's a collaborative, right?
We do a lot of our events either at the office, that's the office, which has been kind of revitalized. We'll show you a picture of it in a minute. At the Alamo Draft House, or we just started a partnership with Laredo College, and so you'll see that. Okay, next slide. We've done screenings. We showed a documentary called Knock Down the House, which is available on Netflix. The filmmakers came and talked about their experience with it. We also had Julia Vera, who is a local actress from Laredo, come in, show our film, and talk about her experience. Both of these were in the Draft House. Next slide. Here's an example of what our office looks like now. We've been working on it quite a bit. That's me painting over there. We just had some curtains. There's a screening going on. And that was from the VJ session too. We did some projection mapping in the office as well. Next slide. Oh, okay, that's it. We also have done some screenings at the Orcuda as well, so it might be more of interest to your teachers than y'all at the moment. So I don't know how much time we have roughly left, But I'm happy to just kind of have a conversation. If you have any questions, advice, knowledge stuff, or anything, we'll go here and then, yeah.
I
Go ahead.
will give a name of the Instagram of the person.
Yeah, just Laredo Film. Yeah, you should be able to find it. Laredo Film Society. Cool. Question?
Two things. One is, I guess it's more of a statement. I will be looking up at y'all's calendar because I would love to bring our students to see y'all and to participate, and myself included. That sounds amazing what y'all do.
Sure.
The other thing is, I guess more for these guys. Algorithms are increasing at an accelerating exponential rate.
Yeah.
You yourself just said that you just type in what you wanted to say, and this program will write the thing for you. We've seen as technology increases, we went from horse-drawn carriages, and then people were afraid when the car came in, but then it created all these jobs for regular people to fix them, fix the flats, etc. So we were all happy. But these are skills like writing skills, meaning-making skills that students have a difficult time with. What would be a good possible suggestion for kids that like to do this, who are going to be competing with artificial intelligence? How do you get a hold on that?
Well, it still can't match human creativity yet. I will say that, right? It's really, as far as I used it, as a tool, right? It won't write the whole thing for you, but if you need a little bit extra words here or there, it can fill in a lot of stuff.
Grammarly is awesome.
Yeah, and Grammarly is basically AI too. So, I guess if you want to take a higher level view of technology, right? We've always been using tools as humans since we were using fire, and sticks, and stones, right? And we use them to manipulate the natural world. I think what's potentially most interesting about AI and even things like the metaverse is, philosophically, I think it's business, the economy, trying to find new things to develop, right? And we were kind of limited on what we can do on planet Earth at the moment. So that's why these virtual worlds are becoming much more interesting. So for y'all, I think being comfortable, at least with AI and coding, is probably a good start. Because that'll be a way in which you can at least be on top of these trends. I struggle with that stuff too. Like, I have to use R sometimes to code images, and it's hard. I just didn't learn it. I wasn't comfortable with it as a kid. HTML is kind of my extent of what I can do, because that's what I used on MySpace as a kid. But the more comfortable you can do with the emerging tools and have access to them, I think the better, because that is where the industry and trends are going now.
One more question.
Sure. No, go
I
ahead.
steal my kids' time. But I teach audio and I've been trying to tell the kids, or I'm feeling this. We explore really amazing things. I feel more and more that it is more important. Because I teach it, but the more I see how much it percolates in society and people use it day to day, I've been getting this nagging suspicion, like, I feel, yes, teaching the arithmetic, yes, teaching the alphabet and grammar. I really feel we gotta teach technology and media like at a younger age.
Yeah.
I feel we wait too long.
Yeah.
Some high schools don't even have a media program.
Well, yeah, two things. One, if you, can't recommend that documentary enough on Netflix, Social Dilemma. Everybody who works in Silicon Valley and creates things like Facebook, they don't let their kids use it. And the joke in the film that I really like, I'm going to spoil it for you, is they say there's only two industries in the world that call the people who use their product users. Drugs and social media, right? And they're both addictive. So I think hopefully what we're seeing now, and we have to be careful again, is being more conscious of our social media use. I really try to limit it. I know it's hard, but I really do try to limit it. And I wish, I think more like technological literacy was starting from a young age about, here's what you do when you set up your Instagram account. Like, and here's what you shouldn't do. Because that's just a world that most adults, when I was growing up, just didn't know of. So definitely that, and I think it's so important to be a critical reader. I'm a believer that, like, out of college, you can read, write, and do basic math. That's all you can ask for, and speak well. Those skills are always going to, I think, kind of remain, and they can be applied to different areas. So. Other questions? Concerns? Advice? Career? What year are y'all in high school?
I'm a senior.
Senior, graduate, senior. Where are y'all applying to college?
I'm going to wholesale in Florida.
Wholesale in Florida, cool. Yeah, and you want to do what?
I'm going to be a cinematographer.
Nice, all right, cool. Where else are you from? You mind sharing? So you don't know yet? Okay. Hey, well, Tammy, you has a great communication. No, I mean, I am promoting Tammy. That's my job. But I didn't go to my hometown university either. I'm in Paso. We have a great institution there, University of Texas El Paso. But I went out and lived on my own for a little bit, and it was awesome. I went to St. Edward's and then UT and DC. And I think there's a lot of good in getting out, learning a little bit, and then finding your way either back home or somewhere nearby. There's nothing wrong with leaving for a bit. So, yeah. But Tammy is a great place to come study. Other questions? All right. Thank you all for being such a good audience. Really appreciate it. I think that my email's up there. I don't know if people still use email. Your teacher might want to grab it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all. There's a little gift that I brought for y'all. I think this is sorry, what's your last name? Teran. This is Teran has it. Some little stickers from
I already passed them out.
Yeah.
You already did? Okay. Well, I got
Thank
one
you
more.
for the speakers that
Thank you.
for presenting.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoy our sessions. Give us about 5 more minutes and then we'll play the films. For those that are online, thank you for joining us. I'm gonna put the links of all the films that were competing in Facebook and in YouTube so you can start checking them out. And well, till tomorrow, you know who are the winners. But thank you so much, Dr. Arthur Soto Vasquez, for being with us. And I hope that you've learned from this. It's a good conversation when you look at media trends. And for us to be updated, we need to know the media trends too. So give us 5 minutes and then we'll continue, okay? Thank you.
Good to meet you. Oh, sure, thank you. Thank you again so much. This is a lot of fun.
Thank you. Do you want me to show you the, let me just remove this one.